Are you in a strip club? He's being worshipped by bachelors. Wolf's playing squirrel with a gun. If you want to follow along and see why I have concerns that his squirrel is now dancing on said stripper pole, follow darkwolf1254 here on YouTube. I've linked him below. This is a weird. Hi everyone. Happy Friday. No, Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. So today it's a get ready with me, and I'm just kind of gonna jabber about something that recently came on my mind. And you can see I've done my hair already. I'm just not gonna brush it out of its curls yet. Now I'm also doing a one of my guess what crystal inspired my eyeshadow while I do this. So bear with me while I kind of do that at the same time. But today I actually want to talk about something that I haven't talked about much on this channel, which is my absolute obsession and love of all things Disney. If you want to know why I slammed ColourPop so hard with how badly they messed up the Toy Story collab, this is why. It's because I love all things Disney. And if there was like a job where my entire role was to spurt and be a fount of Disney trivia, that's random trivia that has absolutely no meaning to anybody else, I would excel at that job. If I could be the official Disney historian without moving away from Arkansas and our kid, that would be my dream job. I would be excellent at it. Yeah, I adore all things Disney. I did in fact work for the mouse for one glorious year, starting in 2004 and ending in 2005, about 3 to 6 months before I moved to Arkansas. And I would be working there still if I hadn't needed to, or hadn't decided that it was in my best interest to go to college and get my degree and move to Arkansas and a bunch of other things. But that year I spent working there changed my life, changed everything about me, and just was incredible. That doesn't mean I think everything Disney does is gold and should be celebrated. And I think they sometimes do things that are a little ridiculous. Wolf's getting ready to film, so if you hear him in the background, sorry. Not everything Disney does deserves to be celebrated, and I'm not the type of fan ever to not say, you know, I don't believe anything is perfect. Even things that I adore. I believe that part of the amazingness of anything is its ability to improve. Its ability to see things that it has done perhaps not so great in the past and improve upon them. And that is something that I really look for and that really makes me admire a brand, and usually Disney is pretty good at that. They also have a habit of anytime something works or something is a magical manifestation of just everything working in concert and being amazing, whenever they find that magical thing, they are going to do everything they possibly can to repeat it. Whether it could be repeated or not, it's going to, they're going to give it their damnedest. And in some ways that's good, you know, that brings out amazing things like, for instance, Toy Story 2. It brings out things like Moana 2, which was awesome. Let's also include Frozen 2, which was, I think, had one of the best male songs of modern Disney. The ballad where I'm lost in the woods, yeah, that ballad was one of the best examples of what we as women want from our men and the mindset that we are looking for in men that I have ever seen. You know, the way that he recognizes her independence and her ability to handle her own crap while also just saying, hey, I want to be there for you. I want to support you. I want to be part of it. Go, be the heroine, be amazing. But let me be there too. Let me support you. I love that. That is like exactly what we want from men. So I'm not saying Disney needs to stop what they're doing. I'm certainly not saying that. What I am saying is not every Not every piece of magic can be and should be redone. And so I wanted to talk about what I think makes for a successful reimagining of a Disney classic and what I think causes their occasional failures. And specifically, again, I'm talking about the live actions. And I know all of my examples I mentioned were not live actions, they were remakes of, or sequels. I don't want to talk about sequels because their sequels, I can tell you exactly what the problem is with some of their sequels. It's all about how much money they throw at it, and did they actually have a story that needed telling, or were they just trying to capitalize and make money? If they found another story that needed telling, the sequels are amazing. If they're just capitalizing and trying to make money, they suck. For instance, Ariel's sequel, the Little Mermaid sequel, it doesn't really tell a new story. It just kind of tries to retell the original story, but in the opposite direction. That's not what we needed. For instance, Cinderella 2. That had a story that needed telling, and I think could have been outstanding, but they made it for an impossibly low budget so that it didn't look as beautiful and amazing as the original. So they have to throw money at it, and they also have to tell a story that needed telling. So anyways, but in their live action, it's different. It is completely different. And I don't think they've recognized, or I think they've kind of lost the plot there with what makes their live actions magical. Now, the first of this live action series, I will say right off the bat, I think is one of the worst. And I think the only reason it did as well as it did is its novelty. And that was, of course, the Cinderella one from years and years and years ago. And I think were it done or released today after we have all the other ones, I don't think it would do nearly as good. It fit the mood of the time. And basically that mood was that all of the kids that grew up in the 90s with the reviving of the golden age of Disney, the second golden age of Disney, that of Aladdin and Little Mermaid and Lion King and Beauty and the Beast and Toy Story. Those of us that grew up with that golden age had hit adulthood, but we still were nostalgic for our childhood, and we were ready for Disney to come out with something that recaptured our childhood, but also gave it to us as at an adult level. And I think that if you look at the best of the live action series, that's really what they did. I have been dreading this particular Guess Switch crystal because I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna be all one color. What am I gonna do? And then I did a little research and I realized, wait, it's not always one color. And in fact, some of the more famous examples of this crystal aren't the color you think of. So this has already gone live. I will tell you guys, it's sapphire. Yellow sapphires and pink sapphires are gorgeous and they are highly prized. So that's why I did a little bit of a cut crease where you have the yellow and the pink, and then I did the different shades of the sapphire along the eyelids. So anyways, and that's where that comes in. So I am testing out a new product I got yesterday, if I can. So this is a new Korean beauty brand, or not new, but it's from a Korean beauty brand called Jindo Korea, and it's a black rice toner. It's kind of, you know, not the prettiest color. It's purple-ish. You have to shake it up. It looks like a milkshake that's separated. I don't know how I feel about this, but we're gonna test it out today. Assuming I can find my doodads. Because after I film this, I'm going to film my April product roundup. This will not be in it because I have to use something more than once before I give a review or what I think of it. I don't just go off first impressions unless my first impressions are so damn awful that I refuse to put it on my skin again, which has happened a time or two. But I don't expect this to happen. Pause while I do something new. Got kind of a milky texture. I don't know about this. Doesn't smell bad, doesn't feel bad. So my initial impression is it's a toner. I know toners open up your pores. I have learned that toning first does help my makeup sit better on my face, How specifically, other than it opens the pores to accept things? I don't know. What makes a good toner? I don't know. I guess if I like it, if I like how it feels and smells, I will say, well, if you want to know what I think of that truffle one, tune in Friday. We're not going to talk about that right now. I am still in love with my Jung Semul. I'm absolutely in love with this. I don't know if I think I got this in March, so I think I've already talked about this, but I'm still using the heck out of it. So if you look at the live action remakes after Cinderella, and I'm going to include Maleficent in this, even though, I'll be honest, I was hoping Maleficent wasn't going to be a one-off. I was ready for them to redo like all the villains, but all we got was Maleficent and Cruella. And I will talk about both of those. Why they did so good in the remake category. One, both of them had plenty of money thrown at them, and they had unique and beautiful artwork and filming. And I do include the sequel to Maleficent as well. That was excellent. It was an excellent way to retell a fabulous story. And it was a story that I feel like needed, or it could be, I won't say needed to, but it could be brought into the modern age and updated and explained. How did we get here? How did this happen? Why did she become what she became? And they told a new story, but they kept it true to the original. Like, there was enough of the original Sleeping Beauty in there that you knew what you were watching. It wasn't just a complete, oh, just kidding, Maleficent's not a villain. She's really a good person. Really, look, she's a good guy. They just explained her origin story, and they did it in a very interesting way, in a way that still made you have sympathy for her, while not necessarily losing the plot, you know? So it was very successful. And Cruella, same thing. They explained her origin story, and they made you feel for her and love her and understand her, but they didn't lose the plot. And you didn't end the story with Cruella being the hero, and wait a minute, so how does 101 Dalmatians happen, you know? You kind of understand, oh, okay, that she was, you can feel bad for her. You can understand how she became a villain, but she's still a villain. It kept true to the original story, which is important. And it approached her story in a way that adults really understood and identified with. I mean, who hasn't had a boss who, if they haven't directly taken credit for your achievements, they've minimized them, or they've made you feel smaller and insignificant? That's not necessarily a story that a child will fully identify with. Maybe a little bit, but not fully. But it is absolutely something that those of us that are millennials and Gen X 100% get. We know that pain, we know that. And it especially reached artists, because a lot of artists work for companies where what they create as artists isn't necessarily treated as their art. It's owned by the company, so it's the company's art. And well, yeah, we understand when we are accepted to an art position in a company, we understand that that's what's going to happen, but it still kind of hurts, you know? We want some of that recognition. I mean, if you're not a huge Disney fan, how many animators can you name? I'm just saying. Can you tell me who is responsible for animating the Beast? Because each character in Disney art has their own animator. Can you tell me who the artist is responsible for his creation and development and what he looks like? Unless you're a huge Disney fan, probably not. What about Cinderella's castle at Disneyland? Or actually it's Snow White's, or it's Sleeping Beauty's castle at Disneyland. Cinderella's castle is at Disney World. Can you tell me who designed that? Because it didn't just come out of thin air. Somebody drew it, somebody came up with it, an architect designed this. Can you tell me who it was? Bet you can't. For the record, no, neither can I. And I love Disney. I know a few, you know, I know the Big Nine, I know some artists, but I can't exactly tell you who's responsible. Can't even tell you who designed the ride I worked on. And I worked on it for a year. Any of the 4 I worked on, I could not tell you. I find that shameful, and I am ashamed to admit that. All that to say, we get it. We can all understand her frustration and her desire to get revenge on the person who dared minimize her contribution. They took the story and brought it into an adult space, but left it entertaining enough that kids are going to enjoy it too. And that's when Disney's at its best. When it excites kids and appeals to adults. Or vice versa. But either way, you have to do both. Beauty and the Beast. The next kind of, I'll be honest, that's the live action I was most excited to see. Because I've always loved Beauty and the Beast. Always. That's been my favorite. I mean, hello. My nickname's Nightingale. Where do you think it came from? I have Beauty and the Beast stuff all over my house. Like, it's down there now. But I have a Mrs. Potts warming thing. I have some, a Disney lamp right up there. I have Disney crap everywhere. Wolf even has a Disney tattoo, or a Beauty and the Beast tattoo, which he got before we got together, by the way. Which is one of the reasons why I thought it was so perfect. I'm like, oh, yep, this is the guy. I was so excited to see that, and I was so worried that they were going to destroy it. But what they did was tell the story, but they added elements to it that appealed to adults. They told us that, what happened to Belle's mother? Why was that so, why was she a single? It wasn't just, oh, she's a single parent child because she's in a Disney movie. It wasn't just that. It was, here is the very logical reason why this happened. Why does an inventor live in the middle of nowhere? Because let me tell you, as somebody who lives in the middle of nowhere, this is not a good place to invent things. There's just not people who are going to buy it. Not a market for it. There's certainly not manufacturing space for it. Where in a big city, modern ideas are more welcome. It explained a lot of that, and it gave the Beast more of a character, We understood how he got where he was. We understood, he's not just some spoiled brat. He was kind of abandoned by his parents too, and the characters, that became the living pot and pan and Lumiere and all of them. In the cartoon, it's like, well, that kind of sucks that they're going to be punished forever because of this guy. In the movie, you understand they're being punished because they contributed. Not all of them, and to varying extents, but they didn't curb his spoiled brat tendencies when they could have, So you understand more. There's more depth. In the relationship between Beast and Beauty, you get to see that depth, and it's not just, oh look, we're villains. I helped you once, now we're in love. That doesn't work. That's not how real life works. You don't just completely change what you believe and what you feel about somebody overnight. And another thing that I noticed about the ones that do well is they add and update the music while staying true to the original. So Beauty and the Beast, you have those classic songs that you want to hear, like Gaston's song. It's there, it's in there, it's fun, you can enjoy it, but you also have the song that they put in the Broadway show that they did not put in any of the cartoons. I think Home's in there, and I think the Beast's, now I understand. The song where I forget the name of it, sorry, I'm having a brain fart. But the one where he's singing about how he understands, They brought in more adult elements and more adult feelings, so it became not just the story and that's what we really need for a live action remake. So look, then that brings us to the ones that didn't do so well. Like, let's talk about The Lion King live action. Now, this one's kind of in a weird category because it was successful, but it wasn't successful as a movie. It was successful as a celebration of culture. It was successful because the voices they brought together created magic. The people who brought these characters to life were magic themselves. And the story, it's a great story, but they didn't really bring a new level to it. What they did bring was an innovative way to animate, because it was kind of live action, but it was very much animated. And that made it surprising and exciting and something we hadn't seen before. So even though the story left quite a, if you held it on its own, and the story itself wasn't that great, sorry. And the acting was okay. That's as most as I'm gonna say about it. The acting was okay. Some was great, some wasn't. The singing was absolutely amazing. Like, you can't, Beyonce, hello, you can't ask for better than that. And again, they brought in elements from the Broadway musical that weren't in the cartoon. So it worked. It made money. It wasn't as successful as they wanted, but it was pretty successful. And then you have Snow White. All of the remakes I've talked about, either they have brought a new story that is relevant to today into it, like Cruella. They brought in, the work aspect that's very relevant to today. I have no words for Cinderella because I hate that live action. I'm just not going to talk about it. Maleficent. They brought in a new story that was relevant to today. Being different, being outcast, being treated badly. We all get that. We identify with that. It works. They didn't do that with Snow White. Snow White, let's remember, Snow White was made in the 1930s. We had very different ideas of what was okay and not okay in the 1930s, and how we treated people and interacted with people. And Snow White herself, her biggest crime in life is she's too pretty, okay? That's not so much relevant today. Like, I know that happens. I know there are parents who are jealous of their children's abilities or whatever, but it's not a common story. I don't know that it ever was, but it's not something that in and of itself is people are going to identify with. And Snow White had a major problem that Disney did not address at all. And it wasn't a problem in the 1930s. And really, we all saw this blow up in Disney's face. And if you didn't, then you weren't paying attention, sorry. And that is it's in the name. The original was Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. One, that's not really a term we use necessarily anymore. I mean, we do, but everything about little people or that category of human being, how we think of it, how we look at it, has changed in the 90 years since the original came out. When the original came out, they were they were people you saw in sideshows. They weren't considered true adults. They weren't considered true human beings. They were oddities, strange things. So it was almost comical. It was totally fine for this beautiful, gorgeous, normal woman to go stay in the house of what was basically considered at the time 7 little children who weren't quite human. Because that was the mindset towards that in the 30s. Then they brought it into today, and they tried to release it today, and they did not address this problem at all. And it started from casting. Like, do we just cast normal actors but make them look short? As several people pointed out, why would you do that? When there are many, many actors of the correct size who are excellent, why wouldn't you use them? And then there's the whole controversy of, well, but then are we casting them because they're little people as opposed to because they're good actors? And the whole problem could have been solved so easily if they had changed the story slightly. If instead of Snow White running away from this evil person who wants her beauty, if instead she was running to a society of people who had also been cast out because they were different and created their own society because they were fully developed, intelligent beings who deserved to be treated as mature adult humans, And they didn't want what society had to offer them. So they had set themselves apart and created. And I'm not saying that's what should happen with it. I'm just saying if Disney had approached the story from that, if they had approached it from like basically Greatest Showman did, where the people who are different, you become accepted when you accept yourselves, you know? You make your own community and you realize your value, and then you go out and you tell the world, screw you, I'm just as good as you, if not better. They could have done that with Snow White and made it acceptable and made it a great movie and brought that into the modern world. Not making the dwarf, I'm not saying make the dwarves the central figure, but have that aspect in there. Have them be developed characters who have a reason for living together in the woods. Why are they there other than just they're miners and that's where their mine is? And then cast the actors who have lived that and who can play that. Whatever size however they decide to approach that. If they had a good story that they then worked actors into, this controversy wouldn't have existed. The problem is they didn't consider, how do we make Snow White a story for a modern age? Because it's not. Snow White is about a pretty young woman who runs away to go live with people who are considered subhuman children until her prince comes to rescue her. And that's the whole frickin' story. That does not appeal to modern audiences. And it's not that controversy kills movies. It doesn't. Look at Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid told a great story. They brought it into the modern age. They made it appeal, they were retelling the same story, but it was appealing to a new age. And they were bringing the new nuances of thought of people of this modern age into it. And they actually considered, wait a second, this movie takes it's Little Mermaid is Poseidon's daughter. Poseidon is the father, or he is the god of the ocean. His daughters represent the 7 seas. They should be, it makes sense to me that they are ethnically the 7 seas. Ariel represents the Caribbean. Therefore, her color should represent the Caribbean. That makes complete sense to me. Like, they made it make sense. And people who are angry because it wasn't exactly like the original, but it was still a successful movie because it was something that was it was a change that was worth making. It was something that should have happened from day one. It wasn't just, let's do this because we need more characters of color. There was a valid frickin' reason for it, which is there are people of color all around the world. Hey, rather than have every story only have white characters no matter where it takes place, let's have the characters actually be the color that they would be if they were from that area. Whoa, mind-blowing. Valid reason. When you have controversy because you're doing something that needs done, your movie's still going to be successful. When you have controversy because you completely ignored modern sensibilities and just regurgitated something that was great 90 years ago, you're on the wrong side of the controversy. And your movie's not going to do well. And that's what happened with Snow White. Disney didn't have the moral high ground on that one. So, the last thing, their response. Okay, this live action remake did horrible and caused us so many problems. Let's put a pause on everyone in production because the people must be sick of them. And on one hand, I get how they got there. And I get the immediate trigger fear of, hey, we don't want to lose more money, so before we pour more money into this, let's stop it. But the thing is, it's not that we're sick of remakes. We're not. I'm all for, I very much want to see a Tangled remake. I want to see a Prince and the Frog remake. I cannot wait to see who plays Tiana's best friend, because that is one of the few characters in Disney movies that I identify with as a heavyweight, a bigger person. I want to see Encanto, because again, there is a larger woman on the scene, or on the screen, who is still feminine and in touch with who she is as a woman. I want to see that in live action. There is still hunger for a lot of the Disney live action. And God, what they did with Aladdin, the changes they made there that made so much sense. And instead of Aladdin, oh, okay, you know nothing about leading a country. You have no education whatsoever. But because you're a man and you're gonna marry the princess, you get to be Sultan. No, that was stupid. Like even in the 90s, that was stupid. So they changed it. And that song, I Won't Go Silent. Oh my God, that song is the most important song that's been in any Disney remake ever. There is still a hunger for those remakes. Just do it right. Don't take something that was good 90 years ago and think that the audiences of today are going to overlook all the problematic things because it's Disney. And I think Disney knows this. I mean, they've never re-released Song of the South. They re-release their classics every 5-10 years. They never re-release Song of the South. Why? Because they realize that shit ain't gonna fly today because it wasn't right then and it's not right now. Snow White's the same. It wasn't right then, it's not right now. Fix it. Don't throw away the remakes that us elder millennials and Gen Z or Gen X desperately are loving, because they are taking our childhood and showing us the grown-up version of our childhood. We still want that. Just for the love of God, fix your mistakes. Don't make it something we can't support. I cannot give my money to something that completely erased all the concerns of every little person actor, both on the side of you shouldn't do this and the side of you should be casting us. I mean, there was so much conversation, and Disney's reaction was, forget it, we're cutting you all out and we're gonna animate them. What? That was the worst possible answer. But anyway, that's kind of where I am with that. I hope that this pause on the Tangled live action is just a pause. I hope that they finish that movie. I hope they do the Frog Prince. I want to see Encanto. I want to see Moana. I want to see all of these live action. Please don't stop because you screwed one up. It's not because we're tired of them. It's because Disney made a mistake. That's my 2 cents anyways. Thanks for joining me. I gotta get ready and film my product roundup because that's coming out Friday, and oh my God, I have a lot to say. Thanks for joining me, guys. Have a nice day.